Hey Woolly Thrill Seekers, welcome to my Woolly PhD. My name's Liz Scarf and this is a weekly vlog about what I am currently learning and making in my anthropology PhD all about wool. This is week 11 officially and I'm still pretty excited about it, still having a lot of fun, so that's nice. You can find a brief overview of my research project on the introductory video on the channel because I won't go over it every week, but you can check that out if you're new here. And yeah, this week, what have I been learning? Well, I don't know that I have as much to share in terms of stimulating ideas as I like to think I do on other weeks. Because I've been mostly occupied with things like risk assessments and ethics applications, and I've also spent a few days in a literature review boot camp, which has been really interesting. Because in anthropology, I think we more tend to do a lot of literature work. Like we have to be across the existing literature, but we don't structure what we write in terms of these sort of formal sections of literature review and like in other disciplines. Which the person delivering the boot camp was fully aware of. It was amazing. She was an amazing academic and teacher, actually. It was really good. But what I did learn, I learned a lot about how AI gets used in literature work. And it just got me thinking about the impacts of AI, or how it impacts the bodily experience of learning from literature. So one of the things I experimented with is I got Claude to make me a concept map. So I plugged in all the concepts I was thinking about, and Claude returned this map that was like way too complicated. Not because Claude did a bad job, but because there were so many concepts that I was trying to put in there. And just the visual representation made me go, oh, no wonder it feels complicated. It's overly complicated. I can't work like this. You can't do a research project with this many concepts, thinking of them as top tier concepts, right? So I did 2 rounds of like getting Claude to take concepts out to then come up with a visual map where I just went, oh, that's actually all I really need in terms of core concepts. That's really workable. So it was relieving, but it was also really interesting to notice that how using a visual tool like mapping was such a useful thinking tool. I guess I don't use them a lot. Sometimes I'll actually use sticky notes but more like in data analysis stage. But it was really helpful and kind of just a bit relaxing. But it did make me think also about like in knitting, right? You know, some people like charts when there's patterns, some people like written instructions. And also the ways in which some people can learn new knitting things from a book, from pictures, whereas others can't. They can learn from a video or they can't. They have to be shown how to do it by somebody in person. So all the different ways in which our bodies are involved in the learning experience. And including the learning we try to do from reading. Like I think I used to think that learning from reading probably wasn't sort of the body in the same way that learning a hands-on task from a video or from someone showing me is obviously so of the body. But of course there is no not of the body. It's like we are just bodies, right? So this idea that intellectual learning is not of the body. I think there's just ways in which my studies are making me go, or just really experience how that dichotomy, like that splitting of mind and body, is just so ridiculous and only exists in theory. It doesn't exist in the lived experience of being an animal, being a human. So yeah, it made me wonder about what changes, like what do we lose and what do we gain when we get AI to do some of our reading for us? Because I didn't get to play with it yet, but there's another one, I think it's Notebook LM, that will do literature reviews for you, right? So you can plug in like up to 50 articles and it will create a literature review from them. And I imagine in some disciplines that would be incredibly useful. And in other disciplines, not so much. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's going to be very dependent on the discipline and the kinds of methods that different disciplines use. I question it's going to be some value of it to anthropology. I'm just not enough of an anthropologist yet to really, I think, get it or have much to say on that yet. I tend to think it's less useful in anthropology than some other disciplines, because anthropology is very subjective. Anyway, we'll see how that goes over the next few years and how my opinions on that change as I use it more and get a little better educated about it. Anyway, so the other thing I spent a lot of time doing was a risk assessment. And I've done a few of these in the past in other jobs. And as most people who've ever done them will say, it's like they're pretty dull, slightly... they're not soul destroying. I was going to say that. That's really over-exaggerating them. They're just a bit boring, right? But I was really surprised to notice that it was actually helpful in helping me think through my fieldwork preparations. They're so often treated as very just kind of bureaucratic processes, albeit designed to save lives and injuries and insurance claims, and these are all really worthy goals, I think. But it was nice to find it really directly useful, certainly given that it takes so much time. Yeah, so that's a lot of what I've been doing this week and learning about. There was one thing that caught my attention to share, but I didn't get to read much about it, so I don't have much to say about it. Well, except that I'm a good waffler, so maybe I have got a lot to say about it. But this is about the process of domestication. So this idea that I tended to think, and I guess many people do, right, that domestication has been a one-way process of humans domesticating other animals, and the other animals having, or plants as well actually, having no say, having no contribution to the process, not deriving any benefits from it, that it's a very one-way and exploitative process. And just reading some things that were kind of really challenging that assumption and inquiring into that further. And that it might actually be more of a two-way process between species where both parties have some influence and interest in a domesticating relationship. So I think it's a really interesting position from which to think about human-sheep relationships. Like wondering, what's in it for the sheep? So obviously there is more or less in it for the sheep depending on the conditions in which they are domesticated. They range really widely, from something that's very obviously highly beneficial to some things that are very obviously purely extractive and detrimental to the lives of those sheep. But broadly speaking, some of the benefits I was reading about is protection from predators, reduced mortality rates, at least in the birthing end of mortality, access to better nutrition, and increased social interaction. So with other sheep, but also with humans, the joy of playing with and getting scratched by humans, right? You see a fair bit of this on Instagram. Well, I do. Lots of sheep enjoying scratches from humans. And also that breeding for desirable traits tends to breed sheep into more robust, healthy animals. Probably, I don't think we see the same in dogs, right? There's a lot of selective breeding of specific dog traits that can make dogs shorter lived and their lives and their health much more compromised. But I don't think that's the case with sheep particularly. Anyway, it made me think about something I read a few weeks ago that I'm not sure if I talked about this or not, but in ethology, right, so ethology is the study of animal behaviour. Ethologists can see that some animals know that tolerating the researcher, like being in the presence of the researcher, protects them from predators. And so the animals actually allow it. And this is a form of exchange. Like, it's not full domestication, of course, but it's an example that some animals can discern benefits from human interaction and they make choices to leverage those benefits. So it's not unreasonable to assume that that has been part of the domestication process. Not maybe always, and I don't know what all the ins and outs of that are, but it's not unreasonable to think that could be going on, right? It's something about how we afford animals in intelligence, right? We tend to underestimate and not perceive the intelligence of animals, or only measure it according to human standards of intelligence rather than context specific about what classes as intelligence for that animal and its in its context and its kind of life, right? So I think even just affording animals the potential for more discernment than we tend to when it comes to animal-human relationships, even that's a bit radical. I think it's really kind of been making me wonder a lot. No answers. Mostly research, certainly in anthropology, it's not about answers. It's about better and better questions and the process of exploration and what you learn from it, rather than saying, oh, now I have an answer to this issue or this question. It's usually like, now I have more details about what's going on in this issue, which might be used to inform certain decisions or something, but not so much answer oriented. So I tend to just get questions that open more questions and more questions. Oh yeah, I'm just checking my notes because I just go off on tangents. So it does make me also want to say that this direction of inquiry is not to romanticise or cover over the mass exploitation of domesticated animals and the torturous conditions that many of them are forced to live in for what are often very short, unsatisfying and highly traumatised lives. But it is to open an inquiry that when and if domesticated animals are not living in torturous conditions, that it may not be as one way and an exploitative as we tended to assume. There may be an exchange of mutual benefit, right? So I'll trade you my wool for your increased care at lambing time, so to ensure that my babies are delivered safely. Like, it's a good exchange. Well, I don't know. I'm not a sheep. Seems like a good exchange. I'd like it. And then this, of course, did send me down a little rabbit hole. It's probably a big rabbit hole, but no, it was a brief rabbit hole. It wasn't little. One thing I'm already trying to really get a hold of in this PhD thing is that the rabbit holes have got to be short in terms of duration. Like, there's just not time to go everywhere. But anyway, the rabbit hole is about non-human domestication arrangements. So I do suggest Googling, examples of non-human domestication arrangement between species, because there are a lot. I was so surprised. I don't know why. Maybe I just have this assumption that I know a lot about the world, and I don't really. Like, every time you come up with these things and you go looking, you're like, oh, it turns out there's heaps of examples that I never knew anything about. There are lots of animals farming other animals and plants in domestication arrangements of varying kinds. It's wild. Some in the ocean, some on land. It was very cool. Anyway, that's kind of a bit of a here, there and everywhere of this week. I think some weeks are like that. I'm not sure how next week's going to go. I've got like 3 days of induction meetings or something. I'm not sure I'm going to have much to share then, but I will still do a video. There'll be something. Anyway, what have I been making? Okay, I have cast on, this is so exciting, a sweater with my hand-spun Corriedale wool. It is, here's the little cake I've been working from. I have shown that before. I don't know if the lighting's not great today. Anyway, I'm videoing this a little bit late in the day. But here it is. Here's the neck band coming. It's a 1x1 rib at the moment. Oh, again, it's not great lighting. Anyway, I'll be able to show you progress. Well, hopefully show you progress next week. I'm already worried about the size. I spent hours of pattern searching and swatching, partly because I just thought, of course I'm making DK weight because I'm not a great spinner and that's all I make, and I've hardly spun anything, so I'm so quick to make assumptions about what I'm making. Anyway, I was really wanting a DK weight because it will take less time to make the sweater, and I was really dreaming about a chunky, fluffy, warm, super cozy sweater from this wool. And when I was swatching it, I realised I didn't even have sport weight. I got fingering weight, really, all up. You know, it's a bit wonky, but when you swatch it, it really kind of adds up to a fingering, I think. This is why I'm worried about the size, partly because the size range, where I fit in it, it wasn't really clear as to which direction to go because I was mid-size. And then thinking about what my tension's like and how inconsistent the wool is, the whole thing's a bit of a gamble. I'm only going to find out by knitting, and I am just already worried about having to pull back like a lot and start again. And it's only so much an issue because I really want to, I've got a deadline of when I want to finish this. Anyway, I guess maybe I can present a half-finished sweater. I just wanted to present a fully finished sweater at a particular presentation I have to do. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. But there is something really cool about that though, because so much about my work, my research work, is about making processes where it's not just the human saying, I will do this to this material and I will get this outcome. So it's been this kind of thing of, here I'm working with a material, I can't completely control the outcome. Not just because I'm less skilled, but because the wool has its own ideas and its own tendencies as to what it can and can't, will and won't do. So I think this has been a cool example of how the practice of spinning as a making and transformation process has been a real collaboration at this intersection of my skill set and the tendencies of this material. So yeah, just kind of seeing how the material has really shaped the growing and making process of the yarn. But I must say, when I sit here like knitting away and holding this yarn in my hands, every now and again I look at the yarn and I just go, oh, I made you. That's so cool. Like, it really does, like, I know how I did it. Well, you know, more or less I know how I did it. But it still feels like a bit kind of magic. I guess because I'm historically, most of my life, I guess, socialised to viewing and experience yarn as something that comes from some industrial process that's quite invisible to me. And so to have actually done it myself has been making it very visible. Which maybe should make it feel less magic. I don't know. I think I'm trying to look for a logic or a rationale here that's maybe not here, because the experience belongs in the zone of sort of irrational enchantment. But I have been enchanted by this wool as I have been knitting it and seeing it move into a new form as I kind of loop it through itself. It's been really cool. Anyway, so once I got beyond the nightmare of casting on the tubular cast on, oh, I don't like it. I really, really have been getting a buzz out of knitting with hand spuns. First time I've been doing it beyond a swatch. Oh, very excited, yes. And it still smells. That's great. Anyway, what am I making though? I picked out the Transverse jumper by Maddy Moe, and yeah, so going along with that. It's pretty simple sweater, and I was just really also looking for something that fit within the meterage that I estimate that I have is probably going to be a stressful game of yarn chicken at the end, where I'm like gradually adding on bits to the sleeves and the body at the same time. It might end up a little more cropped than I might normally go for, or shorter sleeves, but we'll see. And that's okay if it does. I'm not too worried about that. I don't mind short sleeves, shorter sleeves. So that's that, and I cast on these. This is a 2x2 rib in a DK weight yarn. It's Perendale wool from New Zealand, and these are going to be leg warmers because it's starting to get cold here, and I get cold lower legs sitting at computers for hours on end. So I thought leg warmers would be excellent. I grabbed the free pattern called Feeling Good Legwarmers by Nathalie Denys of By Night Designs, or Denys, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, sorry Natalie. It is just a 2x2 rib, so you know I don't need a pattern for this. But I did need to know sort of how many stitches to cast on. So I think that'll be wide enough. We'll see. You know, I think as it goes on, you know, I hate doing 2x2 ribbing though. I'm not sure I'm going to do like 2 whole leg lengths of 2x2 ribbing. It's just not enough of a rhythm. So I think I might just do this for a little while and then just go to stockinette stitch, because it just takes the joy out of it for me to do too much of that kind of ribbing business. So this, yeah, this Perendale 8 more DK weight. I bought this here in Canberra several years ago when for a cardigan that became a cardi-can't. It was a nightmare. It wasn't a nightmare. It was a really great learning experience. It was back when I couldn't even tell what stitches were on my needles, like pearl or knit, and so the ribbing is just like it's just chaos. I still have the piece, and the body was stockinette but striped in like a pale blue and then this dark blue. And the ribbing was mustard. Theoretically it's a great idea, but it didn't look so great. But it was just massive. It was huge. I did the back piece and then I just put it away and moved on to socks, I think. So at some point I'm going to have to unfrog it all and straighten it out, and I'll reuse that wool for something. But all that being said, I have quite a few balls of this yarn left, so I am turning them into leg warmers. And maybe what else? I am also contemplating about duplicate stitching on the top. This Uruga Plains gorgeous DK fluorescent yellow mini skein that I got at the Bendigo show this last year, just so I know which is the top of them. Maybe it doesn't matter. Just wondering, maybe over time it will matter in terms of wear and how they shape over time. I just don't think I've had a pair of leg warmers either in my life or in my life as I remember it. So if you have any tips about leg warmers, ones that come up just under your knees, about whether top or bottom matters, like let's just say they're identical top and bottom in terms of how I make them, does wearing them over time change? Like, does it overstretch the top more? Is it good to rotate them or flip them? It'll help me decide whether I need to. I just think that'll look cool, although mostly no one will ever see it, but I will, so that matters. Okay, now I'm rambling. That's it for this week, I think. Yeah, thanks for watching. Please do leave any questions, comments or reflections that add to or inquire further into the topic. I'm just so grateful for the thinking provocations that people are sharing and your own experiences and feedback about the videos. That's also really cool. Like, subscribe, share it around with all your yarny friends. That's fun too. Yeah, I think that's it for this week. Thanks for watching and hopefully see you next week. Bye.